Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I want to welcome everyone. This is really part one to the program I had with discussion with the brothers and sisters out of the Detroit area. I failed to be able to record this part, so I want to share with the regular audience. And what we want to begin with is the story of Hastings Street, a part of the Detroit area.
Continue to grow, along with an increasing emphasis on Black pride and self-determination. The Hastings area residents witnessed the arrival of some new neighbors, the Black Muslims, who opened one of their first places of worship on Frederick Street, a few blocks down from Hastings. In spite of frequent harassment from police, the movement and one of its most prominent disciples continued to grow.
They weren't too much on the strip back then. Way back then, they weren't there. They came later years. I would say not that many late years, but in the late 40s. We had heard of Malcolm X, not to that great extent, but we knew of the Muslim movement. We knew of their movement because it came into the community and they had quite a few converts. And they would have had more, but it was so strong racially then that a lot of people shied away from it, particularly Blacks coming from the South, changing their tradition attitude about it. And of course, you know, that group started here in Detroit and they got their strength from it. But now, if I had to deal with it there, we see a lot of positive things from it. But back then, they were small in minority, very devoted. And I cannot say clannish, but they only accepted each other.
About Malcolm X, he used to come up to date my sister. Like I said before, it was a fun time house where my mother had because my sister played piano at the age of 4. And there were a lot of musicians that would hang around the house. And Malcolm X heard about these 5 girls up there, single, beautiful girls. And so he began to come up to see my sister Ruth, the one that played the piano. And they would eat dinner on Sunday up there. My mother would fix dinner for them. And it used to be the Romanian Hall. And they would give dances at the Romanian Hall. It used to be white. And then the Muslims came in with Malcolm X and took over the Romanian Hall. And they did have a shootout there when they first started opening the place. And the policemen at that time thought they were troublemakers, and they called them communists. And they shot 2 of the brothers right in front of the Romanian Hall. And shortly after then, they began to move out of that area.
Muhammad, after a ball game on the playground, I mean, he'd be a big crowd. He'd get up on a soapbox and go to talk to the big forward coming through a tear gas and break up the crowds. You know, I saw that when I was a kid.
In fact, I met Malcolm X in the 1951, I believe it was, and I had a chance to meet his brother since then. But I was very impressed with Malcolm X.
Well, when I heard about Malcolm X, actually, he used to come up to see my sister-in-law, Ruth Garden, lived 1448 Frederick Street. And they were just about 2 numbers down. And they had opened a hall there they called Shabazz number 2. And that's where the Muslims had their little meetings. Well, they wasn't so little, but that's where they had the meetings. And every once in a while, we'd be sitting up on the porch overlooking the street, and would be a little something would break out because they did not allow you to bring weapons into the services. And one day they had a little scuffle there with the police because the police, they didn't consider them as a legitimate religion, anything anyway, you know. And so they got in a little scuffle. I don't know whether one got shot or not, but I know there was a little pistol play there because the police came in as if they were looking for somebody. And as a matter of fact, they knew they were not supposed to have weapons on them. So they said, you can't come in here with weapons on you because this is a house of worship. And the police shoved on by them, everything. They had a little scuffle. And I was looking down from my mother-in-law's place on Frederick.
That was the comments that they did just about the Hastings Street and on Frederick, the early Muslim that played there. This one I want to just record just a few comments. This is really, if you listen real good, this is Honorable Elijah Muhammad talking about the Shahada in the Muslim public. So here we go, right here.
Nous n'en sommes pas certains, mais il est possible qu'il ait été un Ahmadite. Je parle d'une personne qui a été membre du temple de la science mort. C'est Elijah Muhammad. Et il est devenu le leader de ce qu'il appelait The Nation of Islam.
Listen to this. Ce que nous disons, Allah est Dieu. Ce que nous disons en arabe, Allah est grand. Ce que nous disons en arabe, il n'y a de Dieu qu'Allah. Il n'y a de Dieu qu'Allah. Muhammad est le messager d'Allah. C'est ce que nous disons.
The Nation of Islam a été...
So we all heard that from ourselves. You know, that was Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know, taking the Shahada. I'm not sure where this French TV got that interview from. That was an interview that they did with me a few months ago, a few years ago, pardon me. So what I want to do now is go into our PowerPoint about some of the research that I found with the Nation Islam in the history in the Detroit area. I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna be able to share. I'm sharing my screen. Bear with me. All right, we are here now. I'm sharing the screen. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Now, before I even start, I just want to give us some background. I've been doing a lot of little census work, a lot of census research. And here, these are some census of people that were born in Africa, living in the Detroit and Michigan area in 1850. There was at least 8 people from Africa. In 1860, there was 7 people in Africa. In 1870, there was 7 people that said they were. And in 1880, 138 people was living in Michigan in Africa. Now this here is the first masjid built from the ground up. And it was built in Harperwood, Michigan, not far from the Ford plant, where a lot of the Muslim had worked there at. But they knocked this down in 1926. The unique thing about this is the diversity and the unity of the Muslims that helped establish it. Some Lebanese Muslims and as well as Shiites, and they allowed the Ahmadiyyan brother to come in and open it up and dedicate it for prayer. Muhammad Siddiqui. Here is one of the early temples or the location where they met in the Detroit area. This here is a 1930 census record of a guy named Ali Muhammad coming from Arabia, and it looks like he was a host because you can see all the different Muslims that was living there. And it was not his family. They were just people with Islamic names that lived in there and worked in the Ford plant. You see Ali Salih, Khalil Hassan, Ali Hassan, Yusuf Suma, a whole bunch. And that was just one sheet. Now, these are some census records of in the 1930 of African-American Muslims, okay, in 1930 now. This is before or right at the arrival of Farah. So these are people that was really before then. Their name was Abdullah Bey Muhammad, Umar Muhammad, Aisha Muhammad. And you see their census records living in the Detroit area. Another in the 1930s, there was at least a family of 4 people that had the last name Shabazz, saying they came from out of Turkey. You see that in the, registered in the census record there. Now this here is the census record of Honorable Elijah Muhammad's father. This is William Poole. When they lived in the Detroit area, this is him in the 1920s census record. I'll let you know what street he lived on. Okay, and his wife Maria. And we said Sister Marie, you see the different family members at the time. James Poole, John, Herbert, Jesse. Here in the 1930 census, Elijah's father, William, Marie, and his other brothers, Elijah Muhammad's grandmother, Peggy. And then in the 1940 census, Honorable Elijah Muhammad's father was living with his brother, who was known as Herbert at the time, but I believe he's also John, which was Sister Bernstein. We know of her history and her heritage, and the grandmother, who was 100 years old at the time. This is a photograph of Honorable Elijah Muhammad's father and his mother. It's Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Sister Clara Muhammad, and Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his children at one of his the weddings of one of his older children. These are census records that we found of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is back in the 1900s when he was 3 years old, living in Georgia. You see his father, William, Marie, his sisters, his big brother, Billy, which we know later as William, Hattie, Lula, Elijah, then you got Elder. This is his 1910 census where they documented Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Then with his father, you see William Poole Jr. Now this is Willie as Jr. And I keep pointing out this Willie. This is the Willie that Master Muhammad, or Master Wali Muhammad is named after, in my summation. This is Honorable Elijah Muhammad's census records in the 1930s, him and his family, and they were still living in Detroit. This is, the street, that Leland Street that he lived on when he's in Detroit. And this is Sister Clara Muhammad, her census records when she was a child. This is Sister Clara at the age of 1 year old. And her father, this time they did say Coy, and her mother, Mary Lou, her brothers, and her sisters. And then this is 1810 census, and when she was 11 years old. And then you see her father named Quintus, Mary Lou, Carlton, and Marie, and some of her family members. Then this is her family census after she got married to Elijah Muhammad. This is 1920s, and her family. This is Sister Bernstein. She was the secretary treasurer for Farad Muhammad. She was very instrumental maintaining records, typing out that data, information. She was held in great honor, great esteem for the community. This is Kalak, Elijah Muhammad's brother. In the census record, they just said that, called him Lot. He was the captain under Farad Muhammad of the FOI. And you see Lot and his family, his wife Florence, and his son or Kelly or daughter Kelly. And they lived in Indiana at the time. Now, a lot of us hear the story about calling the Nation of Islam the Voodoo Cult and all of that. But this is the newspaper article about them. The brother's name was Robert Harris, and he had believed in doing a ritual sacrifice. And he was trying to sacrifice this brother, this guy. And so they arrested him and everything. And then he tried to blame it on the teachings or being a member of the organization. So you see in the newspaper, it was 500 people that went out to protest about Farad and Honorable Elijah Muhammad being arrested. Now, this here is the house that it happened at. They call it the Voodoo House. This is what they call it, the cult of Voodoos. And this is the story. Now, the unique thing about this is that it says DeBall Street. Elijah Muhammad in 1928 lived on DeBall Street as well, but lived down the street. I think this house happened in the 1400 block, and he lived in the 3700 block. And we also saw that there's another record that Elijah Muhammad's father lived on DeBall Street as well, a little further down. Now, unique thing about when they got arrested, some of the names and the personalities. Of course, you see two other members of the society. Wallace Farad is a leader, and Ugan Ali, secretary, are being held. Now, in the FBI report, they say that that Farad was out of California and Portland is what lived there. But this Farad is clear. It says Farad was being held for immigration authorities. So clearly he was not a born American, or Portland, Oregon, California, nowhere. They say he was an immigrant. Now, here they talk about fathers were detained and give you the streets and addresses where they was detained at. Now, what I see also unique about this, you see Abe Muhammad lived on Alpha Street, Oscar, this probably was Sharif, I say Sarif, then Cornelius Bay, and then there was a Wallace Muhammad. This Wallace Muhammad is not W.D. Muhammad. W.D. Muhammad was not even born then. This was a grown person. And then what they called it was the Order of Islam. The other things that they called it was also Allah's Temple of Islam. Now, this here is a photograph of them saying that they was FBI was interviewing Farad Muhammad when he got arrested. Here is a draft record of Wallace died Farad, which they may say Ford, but this one says he's coming from Afghanistan. Clearly not an immigrant, coming from Afghanistan. And this is what we did his draft records. Now, this is that time they all got arrested during that period in the 30s. You see it right here. Some of the photographs, some of the brothers being whipped on. There's a brother, John Hakeem Willis, out of Savannah, Georgia, owns these actual photographs now, and many more of them. Here they brothers asked to take the oath, understand, but here that you see them making a dua, not taking a stand on no Bible. Here's that FOI, the early FOI. This is a lot of those brothers that got arrested during that period, that time. And then a lot of sisters came out to support them. And there's a lot of collection from that period in that time, from the police, the newspapers. There's many collections around. And these are the sisters. And some of these sisters here in Detroit are Elijah Muhammad's sisters, nieces, and aunts as well. Many of them came early followers of his in the Detroit area, as well as these are some of your early Detroit pioneers, brothers and sisters. Here, this is Elijah Muhammad's big brother, Willie, which we became known as Wali. This is his 1920 census record, letting you know where he lived at. And this is when he was still living in Georgia. And this is his wife, Annie Poole, Essie Poole, MC Poole, and Walter Poole with some of his children. Now, this is him living in Detroit now in the 1930s. Letting you know where he lived at, the street he lived on. His name was Willie Poole, Annie Poole, Essie Poole, McCanny, and Walter. This is in the 1930 census. Now we've been able to dig up, the information about Wally or Willie Poole, who was born in August 1891, who died early while Elijah Muhammad was in prison, January 20th, 1944. He was Willie's, William and Marie's oldest son. I said earlier, his daughters and his children. Now, this is his death record. Willie Poole, male, 52. You see his father, William Poole, and Marie Poole, same mother and father as Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Here, his draft records. Okay? And this is what Masjid Wali Muhammad is, the personality we believe is named after. Here, you could trace his daughter. This is in 1935. You see the name Essie Muhammad. They had the name Muhammad. Her father, Willie Muhammad. She married a brother named Alex Hassan. This is in 1935. And this is Alex Hassan information. His father. Then his spouse, Essie Muhammad. So Essie Muhammad married Alex Hassan. So they became the Hassan family. Here, you got where I'm some city records where Elijah Muhammad lived and when he was in Detroit. In 1927, he lived on Rockwood Avenue. In 1928, lived on that DeBar Street, 3734. In 1930, on Inland Avenue. And this is his Social Security information. Once again, his father, now you see his father's name is Wally as well, Wally Poole and Marie Poole. This is his 1940 census record. Living on Washburn Avenue, which is in Chicago, not far from where the Ahmadims also had their headquarters. And here you see Elijah Muhammad with his name, and Muhammad said that on his birth certificate, his name was Mohammed. And you see this is how it's spelled in the census records. And all of them listed, from his mother to himself. His mother led with him. This is Monworthy Muhammad, Wallace D. Muhammad, his census record when he was 6 years old. So that first Wallace was not him. Now they spelled the name all kind of ways. You know, they say this is Akbar, but they spelled it totally wrong. Elijah Muhammad Marie. This is that Essie. Now she's in. This one says she's in Kansas. Essie Muhammad, pardon me. Elijah Muhammad's children, and W.D. Muhammad with his mother. This is Naba Wali Muhammad on the 1940 census records. Willie Muhammad, but he was saying they saying he was single. He wasn't married. Calendar Muhammad. Willie Muhammad. This is at Wali Muhammad. Here in 1940s. Now that you think, you know, we said we was Asiatic black. The Morris Science Temple said it. Even some early Professor Ezadine community, but they were more in the New Jersey area. But here you got in the 1940s, you got Adela Sharif saying she's Arabic and Arab, Asiatic, born in Maryland, saying she's Asiatic, born in Maryland, now living in Detroit on Holbrook Street. Her husband's name was Muhammad Sharif. And then you got some Gregory in the family. And also in the 1940s in the Detroit area, you have at least 9 people that had the last name Shabazz. Now, Malcolm ain't came in this community yet. Malcolm had not even existed. This is 12 years before he even come on the scene. In 1940, you had 9 people with the last name Shabazz. In the 1946 in Detroit, you had 11 people saying that they was Asiatic. Okay, you got, and these are some of the names that were listed. We talked about the Sharif, but then there's this Adam B. It's probably Bayah. Okay, then the calendar and Willie Muhammad in it. Now this is the 1952. These are marriage records of Muslims that got married in the Detroit area. Here's they saying they're Asiatic again. All right. Birthplace, Charlotte, North Carolina. So, you know, he's saying he's Asiatic black, Moor or Muslim, or Nation of Islam member. And his name was Henderson. Here you got an Omar Ali Shabazz, Asiatic black, born in Memphis. Okay. They got married in 1952. And this was his spouse name. And this is his spouse name. And this is an FOI banner that we was able to secure it out of the DC area in the 1930s. This is a plaque that's in Master Wali Muhammad in Detroit, honoring all the pioneers that they were aware of in the 30s. This is really informative, very beautiful, and as you see, it's become a historical site now. And you're going to hear a lot of the stories that from the different believers, Brother Imam, Sister Amina. Matter of fact, she recognizes this brother here as Lionel, one of the early ministers in the Detroit area. This is Minister Lucius B.I. from the pioneers from the Detroit area. This is Willie Muhammad, who was minister, or Willie X in Joliet. This is the Lionel X. Some people say that he was the brother of James Shabazz. This James Shabazz here in the Detroit, Chicago area. Brother Lucius B.I. Malcolm. This is the brother that was the first minister in Atlanta, Georgia. He was also out of Philadelphia. And his name was Brother James X. Then this is Isaiah Kareem. These are some of the early ministers of Elijah Muhammad. This is the minister that ran Temple number 5 in Ohio. This is the minister that did Atlanta, was doing Atlanta, Georgia. Forgive me not recognizing their names. This is that brother in Temple number 5 as well, once again in Ohio area. This is Minister Sultan. He was the first national spokesman, or the first representative for Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad was in jail. He helped maintain and support the community. He was, matter of fact, he's buried in Arlington Cemetery. He has a crescent on his tombstone. Sultan Muhammad. Matter of fact, a couple of Elijah Muhammad grandchildren and great grandchildren are named after the Sultan Muhammad. He was taught by Farad Muhammad as well. And you're gonna hear the mom and a couple of the sisters talk about their experience. These are Brother Malcolm's brothers, which was ministers and members of the community in the Detroit area. You're going to hear some of the members share their experience with these brothers and the relationships. These are many of the fruit and the brothers out of the Detroit area, which is very biblical in helping with the development and the growth of the nation Islam and the history of Muslims in America. Now, this is a very unique article. This happened, they arrested Elijah Muhammad in 1942 after World War One broke out. What's unique about this letter and information about it, it tells you who they indicted. Former charge were Elijah Muhammad, Len Kareem, Pauline Bahar. Pauline Bahar was that sister that was in that photograph standing by herself with the colorful dress. And you see what they call it, Allah's Temple of Islam. All right. Now, they were also arrested a few other movement groups. One other I wanted to point out was this James Newby, also known as Father Divine Hassan of the Covered American National Organization. All right. Then they just still list other people that they arrested. Now, here I find is very important is that they also identify this here is there was two early ministers in the Washington D.C. area along with Sultan Muhammad, and this is where you see a David X, also known as David Jones, and there was a David Devon. We interviewed one of the sisters, and she remembered Lisa David Devon, and then Sultan Muhammad. These he was in Milwaukee as well as in around the country supporting while Elijah Muhammad was in jail. Now this here are some of the pioneers from the Washington, D.C. area when Elijah Muhammad went on the run, left the Detroit and Chicago area, came to D.C. And some of the early pioneers, like this is Isaiah Kareem, became very popular around the country. He helped establish Baltimore area. This here is Brother Elmore. He moved out to Arizona when Elijah Muhammad moved out there. He bought some property out there. This is Brother Charles. Couple of his children, quite a few of his children are members of the community. When Elijah Muhammad got arrested, his wife and them they got arrested for not putting their children to school. This is Minister Sultan. This is his brother James Shabazz, the son of Thunder, who did Newark, New Jersey. Brother Benjamin and Brother Jake. Some of the early pioneers. A lot of these are what they call the field ministers of Elijah Muhammad on the East Coast. Now, this brother here is Haji Ishmael Salmon. It's very unique, and according to this document right here, so far he's the first Muslim African American brother to go on Hajj. It was recorded that he made Hajj was in Mecca on October 31st, 1947. Other reports you hear 52, 57, Elijah Muhammad and W.D. Muhammad and them, they went 59. So he's the earliest one. Another unique thing about him I like is that he also used the term al-Islam. Okay, this is in 47. Then he also said that he come from the tribe of Shabbat. But yeah, he was starting something on following the Sunnah. And his name is Haji Ishmael Salmon. And coming back a little bit more focus on Elijah Muhammad and his works in the Detroit area. This here is the first paper, Muhammad Speaks. It wasn't called Muhammad Speaks then. It was really called Islamic News. This was done in 59, pardon me. And then this here is the first Muhammad Speaks when it started in the 60s, 1960. This is the first one. These are your first two early newspapers that was done by Elijah Muhammad. These are some of the early books that told the story. Detroit, and this one that covers Detroit University of Islam and other things that we have achieved. So you start seeing production, print materials start coming out, being produced. And this is the site of Master Wali Muhammad. When they bought the building, this tells you the story about them buying the building, who they bought it from, and then what they did. This was left in there. This stove was left in there, and then this is where they started doing a lot of the baked goods and doing that bean pie and other baked goods that came from there. This was a building. They had restaurant, apartment buildings, and then they believe they owned this building as well during that period of time. This is Master Wali Muhammad. More closer recently, you see the building which was knocked down. This is an area that's wide open now for new development, for the wide open Muslim mind to come together and work with the Muslim brothers. Some of the Muslims, there's a lot of space, a lot of land that's and space that's available. And Muslims have started doing urban gardens. And that can be a way to help feed the community, generate revenue, and also help do for self. So some of us that are around the other parts of the country, we can help people in different locations to get up on their feet. We got to start working together, helping each other achieve these goals. This is Cobo Hall in Detroit. Elijah Muhammad came there many times visiting and giving lectures, as well as Malcolm. This is the area where we had a major impact. Chicago, Detroit, and DC early on helped produce and help grow this community. And I don't want to leave out Milwaukee. These are some of your students, brothers at the restaurant. The sister is going to talk to you a little later. You're going to hear her story about her family at the restaurant. And this is Detroit also produced the first Muslim judge. This is Judge Adam Shakur, who later became a member of our community. He's the first Muslim judge that we are aware of. And I'm coming towards the closing. This is the article that they talked about and pointing out that when Elijah Muhammad was passed, and that they had devised a plan to try to divide the nation of Islam into threes. And Muhammad refused to accept that and made the announcement, that he was the new leader. So we still was under that one leadership, which helped produce less conflict. Man, if you go back statistically and look at the records of the Nation of Islam, you see that there was 104% growth within the first 5 years of Imam Muhammad's leadership. The community grew from 81 places of worship or temples in 75 to 165 masajids in 1980. 5 years, that was super growth. Increased, then the temples, they had a 79% increased growth in 83, from 83 temples to 143 temples. You can see the information on a different level of growth on the community. Now here, there was 26 temples by the time Malcolm passed, was assassinated, okay? Then after the assassination in 1966, it moved from 26 to 41, okay? So you had a 58% growth. So if they took a hit, they also had a growth within them, okay? And then you see from 67, 44, it's stable for a minute, then it started to growth again. But then you see another wave, a steady wave, late 69, and 70, 71, 72, you start seeing growth. And this is right before the time when Imam Muhammad came in. You can see the temple from 69, they had 47, and 75, they had 75, okay? So there was a wave of growth of people that came into the community in those little short years. Then you see the blossom of the growth. And it was not only in the United States, but overseas, in the Caribbean and abroad, elsewhere. There was many different masjids that was established all throughout. Many things Imam Muhammad as well has made contributions in language and concept ideas. Now this here was an opportunity was blessed with a few years ago, be at one of the houses, the original house of Honorable Elijah Muhammad before they built the new one. And this is his granddaughter Halima. This is the brother, the doctor and his family that owned the house. And there was a lot of Alif Muhammad. This is the brother whose wife, the Palestinian, whose wife had made Honorable Elijah Muhammad's hat. Alif and his mother, Wali Baha, Brother John Ali, the sister from the Fahan, from the school, and the business brother. So that hopefully that gives us a little glimpse of the history and contribution of the Muslims in the Detroit area. If you listen to the part 2, you'll hear the Imam, you'll hear Sister Halima, Sabrine, Brother Lyndon, and others share their history and their experience, not only with Malcolm, but Malcolm's brother and the community and the opportunities that they shared. I want to thank y'all for your time, patience, and perseverance. May Allah increase our faith, increase our understanding, increase our gratitude. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.